Chosen one, stop scrolling. If this found you right now, it may be because God has been trying to get your attention in the middle of all your noise. Not just the noise around you, but the noise within you. The constant thinking, the constant explaining, the constant replaying of conversations, the constant need to make sense of everything before you trust what God is doing. You may have felt lately that the more you speak, the more tired you become. The more you explain yourself, the more misunderstood you feel. The more quickly you share what God is showing you, the more scattered your peace becomes. And after a while, you start wondering what is wrong with you. Why does everything feel so heavy? Why does every conversation seem to cost you energy? Why do you leave certain moments feeling more drained than relieved? But hear this carefully. The problem is not that you are weak. The problem is not that you are broken. And the problem is not that God has abandoned you. It may be that you have entered a season where heaven is no longer asking you for more talking, but for deeper listening. There are seasons when God will let you pour out, testify, build, speak, encourage, and declare. But there are other seasons when He begins to pull you inward, not to isolate you from purpose, but to protect the very thing He is forming inside you. That is why what used to feel natural may now feel expensive. What once felt like harmless sharing now leaves you restless. What once felt like connection now feels like overexposure. It is not because every person around you is against you. It is because not everything God is doing in you is meant to be discussed while it is still becoming. Some things lose strength when spoken too early. Some instructions become blurred when exposed to too many opinions. Some breakthroughs remain fragile until they grow roots in silence. And this is where many people miss the real danger. They keep looking for enemies outside themselves while ignoring the noise they are creating within. But sometimes the greatest disruption is not spiritual attack from the outside. Sometimes it is the constant inner urgency to speak too soon, explain too much, and seek reassurance before obedience has had time to mature. Sometimes the thing delaying your clarity is not opposition. It is overexposure. Chosen one, this is why God may be calling you into quiet right now. Not because He is punishing you, not because He is taking your voice away, and not because your life is shrinking. He is asking for silence because silence can hold what noise cannot. Silence can protect what words might weaken. Silence can make room for discernment, healing, and clear direction. In this season, going quiet is not withdrawal from life. It is alignment with God. The Bible gives us a powerful instruction in Psalm 46 verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. Many people read that verse and imagine it simply means to sit quietly for a moment. But the stillness God speaks about is much deeper than physical silence. It is the quieting of the inner urgency to control outcomes, the quieting of the need to explain everything, the quieting of the impulse to make others understand what God is doing in your life before His work has fully unfolded. To be still is not laziness. It is not withdrawal from responsibility. It is the discipline of stepping back from constant reaction so that you can finally recognize who is truly guiding your life. When God invites someone into stillness, He is not reducing their importance. Often, He is preparing them for expansion they cannot yet see. And one of the ways God does this is by gently reducing how much you speak, how much you reveal, and how much you depend on external affirmation. This can feel confusing at first. You may notice that conversations you once enjoyed now feel draining. You may feel less desire to explain your plans, your dreams, or even the spiritual insights you have been receiving. What used to feel natural suddenly feels out of place. There are usually 3 important reasons behind this shift. The first is that silence reveals what noise was hiding. When life is loud, it becomes very difficult to hear what is actually happening within you. Constant conversations, endless updates, and the pressure to respond to everything around you can drown out the quiet voice of truth inside your spirit. But when you step into silence, something surprising begins to happen. Thoughts that once seemed clear may start to reveal deeper motivations. Emotions you pushed aside begin to surface. Questions you avoided begin to ask for honest answers. In silence, God allows you to see what noise was covering. You begin to recognize what truly belongs in your life and what was only there because it filled empty space. Silence brings clarity because it removes the distractions that once competed for your attention. The second reason is that silence protects what is still forming. There are seasons when God begins building something new inside a person. It may be a calling, a direction, a dream, or a deeper understanding of who they are meant to become. But like a seed placed in the soil, these things need time to develop before they are exposed to the world. If you dig up a seed every day to show others that it is growing, you will damage the very thing you hope to nurture. The same principle applies to spiritual growth. Many people unintentionally weaken their progress because they reveal it too early. They share dreams before those dreams have roots. They discuss personal convictions before those convictions have matured. They seek affirmation before they have developed the inner stability to carry what God is giving them. When God invites you into silence, it is often because what He is forming inside you is still delicate. It needs privacy. It needs time to strengthen. And sometimes it needs protection from opinions that were never meant to shape it. The third reason is that silence retrains dependence. Human beings naturally look for confirmation from others. When something important happens in our lives, the instinct is to talk about it, to receive encouragement, and to hear others affirm that we are moving in the right direction. While encouragement can be healthy, it can also become a subtle form of dependency. God sometimes reduces the number of voices around you so that your dependence returns to Him. When you speak less to everyone else, you begin to speak more honestly to God. Your prayers become less rehearsed and more sincere. Your conversations with Him become deeper because you are no longer seeking validation from the crowd before you trust His direction. Many people have experienced moments where they shared their dreams too early, hoping for support, only to receive doubt instead. Others have discussed personal revelations before they fully understood them, turning something sacred into a debate. Some have sought reassurance from friends or strangers online before they learned how to stand firmly in what God placed in their heart. This is why silence can become a gift rather than a restriction. It helps you resist the urge to overshare. It teaches you patience while something meaningful is still developing. And it strengthens the relationship between your spirit and the voice of God. Because the truth is this: not every vision is meant for immediate announcement. Some dreams must grow in private before they can survive public attention. Some callings must mature in secret before they are strong enough to stand in the open. What God is building in you may not be ready for the spotlight yet, but that does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the most important transformations occur in seasons when almost no one else can see them. Once you begin to understand holy silence the way God intends it, you start to realize something important. Silence is not empty. It is not wasted time. It is not spiritual inactivity. In fact, some of the most powerful changes in a person's life begin in seasons where very little is visible from the outside. Silence is not where growth stops. Silence is where roots go down. Think about a seed buried beneath the soil. From the surface, nothing appears to be happening. Days pass, sometimes even weeks. Yet beneath that quiet layer of earth, something extraordinary is taking place. The seed is opening, forming roots, stabilizing itself before it ever attempts to rise above the ground. If that seed were exposed too early, it would never survive the pressure of sunlight and wind. The hidden stage is not delay. It is preparation. Holy silence works the same way in your life. When God brings you into a quieter season, He is often producing for powerful things inside you that cannot grow properly in constant noise. The first is clarity. When your life is filled with voices, opinions, advice, commentary, and endless conversation, it becomes incredibly difficult to recognize which thoughts are actually yours and which ones belong to everyone else. Over time, fear can start sounding like wisdom. Pressure from others can start sounding like responsibility. Even anxiety can disguise itself as urgency. But when you begin to quiet the noise around you, a surprising separation begins to happen. You start noticing the difference between your fears and God's guidance. You begin to recognize which desires came from your heart and which ones came from expectations placed on you by others. Clarity emerges because silence removes the layers of interference that once distorted your thinking. The second result of holy silence is discernment. When you are constantly explaining your plans, sharing your dreams, and exposing your inner world to everyone around you, it becomes difficult to see who is truly walking beside you and who is simply curious about what you carry. Some people are drawn to information more than they are drawn to relationship. Others are interested in access to your vulnerability without having the maturity to support your growth. Silence changes that dynamic. When you stop revealing everything, certain people naturally drift away because they were only connected to the information you provided. But those who genuinely care about you remain. They are not dependent on constant updates or explanations. They value your presence more than your details. In this way, silence becomes a filter. It reveals which relationships are built on genuine connection and which ones were sustained only by constant disclosure. The third thing holy silence produces is emotional healing. Many people carry wounds they do not realize are still shaping their decisions. The need for approval, the fear of being forgotten, the pressure to prove their worth through constant activity or constant explanation. These patterns often hide beneath busy lives because noise gives them somewhere to hide. But when life becomes quieter, those deeper emotions begin to surface. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. You may notice thoughts or feelings you once avoided. But this process is not meant to harm you. It is meant to free you. In silence, God begins gently revealing the places in your heart that still need healing. The parts of you that learn to seek validation from others instead of resting in His acceptance. The parts that still fear rejection or invisibility. When these places are brought into the light, healing becomes possible. The fourth result of holy silence is spiritual stamina. In a noisy world, people often develop the habit of reacting immediately to everything. Every comment demands a response. Every misunderstanding requires explanation. Every challenge triggers defense. Over time, this constant reactivity drains emotional and spiritual strength. Silence retrains your responses. Instead of reacting instantly, you begin to pause. Instead of defending every moment, you learn to observe before you speak. Instead of rushing into every conversation, you grow comfortable allowing time and wisdom to guide your words. This slower, steadier posture creates depth. Your presence becomes calmer. Your decisions become more thoughtful. Your words carry more weight because they are no longer scattered across every moment. We see this pattern throughout Scripture. Jesus, when falsely accused before His crucifixion, did not defend Himself with endless arguments. His silence carried authority because it was rooted in trust. Mary, after receiving the astonishing message that she would carry the Son of God, did not rush to broadcast the revelation to the world. The Gospel tells us that she pondered these things in her heart. She allowed the mystery to mature in quiet reflection. These examples remind us that silence is not weakness. It is not avoidance. It is often the birthplace of spiritual strength. When you allow holy silence to shape your life, you are not simply protecting your future blessings. You are rebuilding the structure of your inner world. Your thoughts become clearer. Your relationships become more genuine. Your emotions begin to heal. And your spirit becomes stronger, steadier, and more grounded in God. And once these roots have grown deep enough, something beautiful begins to happen. The life that eventually rises above the surface is no longer fragile. It is stable, mature, and capable of carrying the purpose God always intended for you. Understanding the value of holy silence is important, but understanding how to live it is even more important. Revelation without practice changes very little. If God is truly leading you into a quieter season, then there are certain habits that must begin to change. Not because God wants to restrict your life, but because some patterns quietly drain the clarity He is trying to build in you. In this season, there are 3 things you must begin to stop doing. The first is this: stop over-explaining your life to everyone. Not every person needs to understand your journey right now. Not every decision requires a long explanation. Many people feel an internal pressure to constantly justify themselves. If they change direction, they feel they must explain. If they grow distant, they feel they must clarify. If they become quieter, they feel they must reassure everyone that nothing is wrong. But often this pattern is not obedience. It is anxiety. It comes from the fear of being misunderstood or judged. The truth is that when God begins working deeply in your life, not everyone will understand it immediately. And that is okay. Over-explaining can actually weaken your peace because it places your inner process into the hands of too many opinions. In this season, you are allowed to move quietly without narrating every step. The second thing to stop is sharing everything while it is still fragile. When something new begins forming inside your life, a vision, a direction, a conviction, it can feel exciting to talk about it. Sharing it makes it feel more real. But when something is still fragile, exposure can damage it. Words from others, even well-meaning ones, can create doubt where faith was growing. Think about a small plant that has just emerged from the soil. If too many people step around it, touch it, or question whether it will grow, the plant may never reach maturity. The same thing happens with spiritual growth. If every idea, every prayer, every direction is immediately placed into public conversation, the roots never have time to strengthen. This is why some things God does in your life must remain private for a season. Not secret out of fear, but protected out of wisdom. What God is shaping within you does not always need immediate evaluation from the outside world. The third thing you must stop doing is filling every quiet moment with noise. Modern life trains people to avoid silence. The moment a room becomes quiet, many instinctively reach for their phone. A notification, a video, a message, a scroll through endless information. Anything to prevent the mind from sitting still. But if you constantly fill every quiet space, you also remove the very environment where God often speaks most clearly. Silence is uncomfortable at first because it slows everything down. It forces your thoughts to settle. It removes the distractions that once kept deeper questions hidden. But over time, that quiet space becomes one of the most valuable places in your life. So instead of filling silence, begin practicing 3 simple habits that help you enter it intentionally. First, create 10 minutes of stillness with God each day. It does not need to be complicated. Sit quietly, breathe slowly, read a short passage of scripture, or simply sit in prayer. The goal is not performance. The goal is presence. Second, begin journaling before sleep. Write down the thoughts that surfaced during the day, the prayers you are holding, and the things you sensed God revealing. This simple practice helps your mind release the noise it has been carrying. Third, practice delaying your response when you feel emotionally triggered. When something frustrates or unsettles you, resist the urge to immediately reply, explain, or defend yourself. Give your spirit time to settle before speaking. Many words spoken too quickly create damage that silence could have prevented. Over time, these small changes reshape how you move through life. You become calmer, more thoughtful, more centered, and eventually you begin to realize something powerful. Sometimes the next breakthrough in your life does not require a louder prayer, a bigger explanation, or more effort. Sometimes the next breakthrough simply requires a quieter soul. When you finally begin to understand holy silence the way God intends it, something inside your perspective begins to shift. Silence no longer feels like loss. It no longer feels like isolation, rejection, or absence. Instead, you begin to see it for what it truly is, a place where God quietly rearranges your inner world. Silence is where motives become untangled. It is where God gently separates what you truly desire from what you once pursued only to please others. In the quiet, He restores the peace that constant explaining slowly drained from you. In the quiet, your direction becomes sharper because you are no longer listening to 10 different voices competing for your attention. Silence clears the path so you can hear the voice that actually matters. When you stop trying to prove yourself to everyone, something powerful happens. You begin to notice what God has been building all along. The pressure to perform fades. The need to constantly justify your decisions begins to loosen. And instead of running in every direction to maintain appearances, you start conserving your energy for the places where God has truly called you to walk. The more you practice this quiet obedience, the more you realize how much strength silence actually carries. When you speak less about everything that is still forming, you protect the work God is doing in you. When you withdraw from unnecessary noise, your mind becomes calmer and your spirit more steady. And when you remain long enough in God's presence without rushing to the next conversation or distraction, something beautiful begins to emerge: clarity. You begin to move through life with fewer regrets because you are no longer reacting to every situation immediately. You speak when wisdom leads you to speak. You act when peace confirms your direction. And slowly, the chaos that once surrounded your decisions is replaced by a deeper sense of alignment. That is why this season of silence is not the end of your voice. It is the beginning of cleaner obedience. The kind of obedience that is not rushed, not anxious, and not dependent on the approval of others. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are walking in step with God. If this message speaks to the season you are in right now, take a simple moment to support it. Like this video so that it can reach other people who are feeling exhausted by too much noise and too many opinions. Subscribe to Chosen by God, where we share faith-based messages designed to bring clarity, healing, and spiritual maturity to your journey. And if this message resonated with your spirit, leave a comment below and write, "I choose holy silence." Because silence is not God removing you from the story. Silence is where He prepares you for the part you are about to step into. Remember this truth as you move forward. God is not silencing you to erase you. He is quieting you so you can hear who you must become.